There's a moment when everything shifts, but you'll only know it when it happens. What if the secret to progress isn't control, but surrender? What if everything you've been taught about getting what you want is backwards? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal might completely change how you approach your entire life. Most people are walking around with a death grip on their dreams, their relationships, their futures. They're white-knuckling their way through life, convinced that if they just try harder, control more, force things to happen, they'll finally get what they want. But here's the thing nobody talks about: that desperate energy. It's actually repelling everything you desire. Think about it. What's the one thing you just can't let go of right now? That relationship that ended but you keep hoping will restart? That job opportunity you've been chasing for months? That dream that feels like it's slipping away no matter how hard you fight for it? The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers like sand. But what if I told you that letting go isn't about giving up? It's not about becoming passive or surrendering your dreams to the universe and hoping for the best. Real letting go is actually the most powerful thing you can do. It's an active choice, a conscious decision to trust something bigger than your need to control every detail. Here's where it gets interesting. I want to share a story that changed everything for me. Picture this: sitting in a car, completely burnt out, exhausted from trying to force life to happen the way I thought it should. For months, I'd been pushing, scheming, planning every move, trying to control the how of my dreams. Nothing was working. Doors kept slamming shut. Opportunities kept slipping away. I was running on fumes, both mentally and emotionally. That's when something shifted. In that moment of complete exhaustion, I made a decision that felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. I let go, not of my dreams, not of my vision, but of my desperate need to control how those dreams would unfold. I released my death grip on the how and just breathed. Was this luck, coincidence, or something deeper? Within weeks, and I mean literally weeks, opportunities started appearing out of nowhere. People I'd never met before reached out with exactly what I'd been searching for. Doors opened that I didn't even know existed. The very things I'd been chasing while exhausted suddenly started chasing me. But that wasn't the whole story. See, there's an energy behind control that most people don't understand. When you're operating from that desperate, grasping energy, you're actually broadcasting scarcity to the world. People can feel it. Opportunities avoid it. It's like trying to catch a butterfly by running after it with a net. The harder you chase, the faster it flies away. Think about those times when you've lost your keys. You tear the house apart, getting more and more frustrated, checking the same places over and over. Then, the moment you finally stop searching and sit down defeated, there they are, right in front of you, the whole time. Life works the same way. Control creates this forceful, desperate energy that pushes away the very things you want most. But the moment you release that death grip, the moment you stop operating from scarcity and start trusting the process, everything changes. It's like switching from swimming against a current to floating downstream. Suddenly, you're moving faster with less effort. Here's what most people get wrong about letting go. They think it means becoming passive, just sitting back and waiting for things to happen. That's not letting go. That's giving up. Real letting go is active trust. It's saying, I'm still committed to my vision, but I'm gonna trust the process of how it unfolds. There's a difference between inspired action and desperate action. Inspired action feels light, effortless, like you're being pulled forward by something greater than yourself. Desperate action feels heavy, forced, like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain. The universe responds to your energy, not your urgency. When you're operating from that desperate energy, trying to control every outcome, you're essentially telling the universe, I don't trust you. I need to handle this myself. But when you let go, when you release that need for control, you're saying, I trust that there's something bigger at work here. I trust that the right opportunities, the right people, the right timing will align. And here's the mind-blowing part. The moment you make that shift, the moment you stop grasping and start trusting, life begins to respond in ways that will shock you. Opportunities that seemed impossible suddenly become available. People you never expected start showing up to help. Resources appear from places you never thought to look. But there's more to this story, and what happens next will completely reframe how you think about desire, commitment, and the relationship between effort and results. Because letting go isn't just about releasing control, it's about discovering a completely different way to create the life you want. Now here's where things get really interesting, because what I'm about to tell you challenges everything our culture teaches about success and achievement. We've been programmed to believe that more effort equals better results, that control equals security, that if we just push harder, we'll break through. But what if that's the exact opposite of how life actually works? Let me explain the mechanics of what's really happening when you let go. It's not passive. It's not lazy. It's not giving up on your dreams. Letting go is actually the most active thing you can do. It's choosing trust over fear, flow over force, alignment over anxiety. When you truly let go, you're not abandoning your desires. You're changing your entire relationship to them. Think about commitment versus attachment. Most people confuse these two, but they're completely different energies. Commitment says, I'm dedicated to my growth, my vision, my path. Attachment says, it has to happen this specific way, at this specific time, or I'll fall apart. One is empowering, the other is suffocating. When you're truly committed without being attached, something magnetic happens. People are drawn to your energy because it's not needy. Opportunities gravitate toward you because you're not desperately grasping for them. You become like a lighthouse, steady, confident, attracting what's meant for you without chasing anything. But that wasn't all I discovered during my own journey. Here's the paradox that'll blow your mind. The moment you stop needing something to happen, that's often when it shows up. Not because you stopped caring, but because you changed the energy around your desire. You went from I need this or I'll die to I want this and I trust it'll unfold perfectly. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're at a party and there's someone you really want to talk to. If you approach them with desperate energy, needy, trying too hard, attached to a specific outcome, they'll probably make an excuse to leave. But if you approach them from a place of genuine interest without attachment to whether they like you back, the conversation flows naturally. They're drawn to your confidence, your authenticity, your lack of desperation. Life works exactly the same way. When you're operating from that secure, trusting energy, opportunities don't just appear, they pursue you. Doors don't just open, they swing wide. People don't just help you, they go out of their way to support your vision. This is where our cultural programming becomes a massive obstacle. We've been taught that control is power, that effort is everything, that if we're not struggling, we're not working hard enough. We worship the grind, the hustle, the make it happen at all costs mentality. But nature doesn't work that way. Trees don't force themselves to grow. Rivers don't struggle to reach the ocean. Seeds don't stress about becoming flowers. Everything in nature operates on trust and timing. A seed trusts that if it reaches toward the light, everything it needs will be provided. It doesn't try to control what kind of tree it becomes or exactly when it'll bear fruit. It just grows one day at a time, trusting the process completely. But we've been conditioned to believe we're different. We think we need to micromanage our dreams into existence. We create elaborate plans and then get frustrated when life doesn't follow our timeline. We try to force outcomes instead of creating conditions for what we want to flourish. Here's what I learned that changed everything. You can't force a seed to become the exact tree you envision, but you can create the perfect conditions for it to grow into whatever it's meant to become. And often, more often than not, what it becomes is more beautiful than anything you could have planned. The universe responds to your energy, not your agenda. When you're operating from control, fear, and attachment, you're broadcasting scarcity. When you're operating from trust, flow, and commitment without attachment, you're broadcasting abundance, and abundance attracts abundance. But here's where it gets even deeper. Letting go doesn't just change what shows up in your external world, it completely transforms your internal experience. When you release that death grip on control, when you stop trying to force outcomes, you discover something shocking. Peace isn't something you achieve after you get what you want. Peace is available right now in this moment, regardless of your circumstances. And from that place of inner peace, from that secure foundation of trust, your actions become incredibly powerful. You're no longer operating from desperation or fear. You're moving from inspiration, from alignment, from a deep knowing that you're exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do. This creates what I call effortless effort. You're still taking action, still moving toward your goals, but it feels like you're being pulled forward by an invisible current rather than pushing yourself up a mountain. The work becomes lighter, the results become bigger, and the journey becomes enjoyable instead of exhausting. But what happens when everything in your life starts falling apart? When the very foundations you built seem to crumble? That's when letting go becomes not just beneficial, but absolutely essential for survival. And what I discovered during those dark moments will completely shift how you view life's most challenging periods. So what happens when your entire world seems to collapse? When relationships end, jobs disappear, dreams crumble, and everything you thought was solid turns to dust. This is where letting go transforms from a nice concept into a survival skill that can literally save your life. I'm talking about those moments when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything went so wrong. When the future you'd carefully planned has been ripped away and you're left standing in the wreckage of what used to be your life. These moments aren't accidents, they're not punishments, they're something far more profound. They're necessary endings, creating space for impossible beginnings. Here's what nobody tells you about growth: it's not comfortable. Real transformation requires you to outgrow who you've been, and that process feels like death, because in a way it is death. The death of old patterns, old identities, old ways of being that no longer serve you. But just like in nature, death is never the end. It's the beginning of something new. Think about a snake shedding its skin. For days before it happens, the snake becomes restless. Its vision clouds. Its old skin becomes tight and uncomfortable. The shedding process itself looks violent, almost painful. But what emerges is stronger, more vibrant, ready for the next phase of growth. That uncomfortable, scary period before the breakthrough, that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That's a sign you're about to level up. But here's where most people get it twisted. When everything starts falling apart, their first instinct is to grab control, to fight against the current, to try to hold on to what's dissolving. They panic and start forcing, pushing, trying to rebuild exactly what they had before. This is like trying to glue a butterfly back into its cocoon. What if, instead of fighting against the endings, you trusted them? What if you understood that life knows what it's doing, even when you don't? What if those painful transitions aren't obstacles to your happiness, but pathways to something beyond what you could have imagined? I learned this the hard way during one of the darkest periods of my life. Everything I thought I wanted, everything I'd worked for, everything that made me feel secure gone. And for months, I fought against it. I tried to control the pieces back together, tried to force solutions, tried to make things go back to how they were. I was exhausted, desperate, and honestly pretty broken. That's when I finally understood what letting go really meant. It wasn't about giving up on my dreams. It was about giving up my attachment to how those dreams had to unfold. It was about trusting that maybe, just maybe, life was clearing space for something even better. And that's exactly what happened. But not in the way I expected, not in the timeline I wanted, not through the people or opportunities I thought would save me. Life had a completely different plan, and it was more beautiful than anything I could have orchestrated myself. Here's the secret that changes everything. The universe doesn't respond to your desperation, it responds to your frequency. When you're operating from fear, control, and scarcity, that's the energy you're broadcasting, and that's what gets reflected back to you. But when you shift into trust, flow, and abundance, even in the middle of chaos, everything changes. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about finding that deep, unshakable security within yourself that doesn't depend on external circumstances. It's about knowing, on a cellular level, that you're exactly where you need to be, even when you can't see the bigger picture. When you operate from this place of inner security, when you trust the process even when it looks like everything is falling apart, you become magnetic to solutions, opportunities, and people who can help. You stop pushing against life and start dancing with it. You realize that you don't need to control the river, you just need to learn how to navigate it. And here's the most shocking part. Once you truly let go, once you stop grasping and start trusting, life doesn't just give you what you thought you wanted, it gives you what you actually need for your highest good. Sometimes that looks like your original dream. Sometimes it looks completely different, but feels infinitely better. The people who master this, who learn to let go without giving up, who trust without being passive, who flow without losing direction, these are the people who seem to live charmed lives, not because they don't face challenges, but because they've learned to work with life instead of against it. So here's my question for you. What would happen if you stopped trying to control the river and let it carry you instead? What if the very thing you're desperately trying to force is actually trying to flow toward you, but your death grip is blocking its path? Your dreams aren't going anywhere. Your desires aren't disappearing. But maybe, just maybe, life has a better plan for how they unfold than you do. Maybe it's time to trust that plan. Maybe it's time to let go and see what magic is waiting on the other side of your surrender. Take a deep breath, release that grip, trust the flow. Your river knows exactly where it's going.